The revelation didn't come with trumpets, torn clouds, or shining portals. It came in silence. In an ordinary instant, shared unknowingly by millions, the streets, houses, and corners began to fill with translucent figures, faded yet perfectly recognizable. They were people who had died, people the world had mourned, forgotten, overcome, or struggled to live without. And now, they were here, visible, audible, and tangible. A light touch that chilled the skin, a constant presence that shifted the air around them. They were not hostile, they were not wounded. They simply were. Materialized memories. The entire world froze, unable to understand whether this was a gift, a warning, or the beginning of the end, arriving quietly. Within hours, every city seemed overcrowded, not with the living, but with those who had already departed. They walked slowly, always looking around as if they had returned to a home that no longer belonged to them. Some sat in public squares, others stared at their former homes, others followed relatives who could not accept their return. They did not speak, did not smile, did not display human emotion. They were shadows with an unknown purpose. This new world, intertwined by living and dead, fell into a wet, cold tension, hard to breathe. And for the first time, humanity feared not death, but what came after it. Among all who tried to understand the new reality, there was a woman named Leah. While others felt only chills, she heard complete whispers, structured phrases, full voices coming from the echoes. They spoke in a tone unlike any human voice, as if their sound came from the surface of the world instead of the air. At first, Leah believed she was losing her mind. After all, no one else could hear actual words, only faint murmurs. But when an echo approached her, touched her shoulder, and repeated her name with absolute perfection, she realized something far greater was happening, something only she could decipher. The first echo to communicate clearly called himself Elias, a man who had died decades earlier. His figure was dim, surrounded by a faint bluish glow, like reflected light on cold water. He approached Leah amidst a nearly motionless crowd. While everyone watched the chaos caused by the dead appearing, Elias stared directly at her with precision impossible for a specter. "You can hear," he said. Leah's body trembled, not from fear, but from the certainty that this was the beginning of something extraordinary or terrible. Leah tried to warn authorities, scientists, experts, anyone willing to listen, but no one accepted the idea that the echoes might be trying to communicate. No one wanted to believe it. The appearance of the dead was already more than enough to face. Most believed the echoes were just remnants, crystallized memories with no consciousness. But Leah knew they weren't. They spoke to her. They asked for help. And the urgency in their voices grew stronger each day, as if they were trying to get ahead of something approaching. Elias said the first words that truly changed everything. "We did not come to stay. We came to warn." The sentence reverberated inside Leah like an undeniable truth. The echoes were not lost souls, not animated memories. They were messengers. Between the living and the dead, a bridge now existed, and Leah was its only link. Yet the warning remained fragmented, as if only part of the message could cross into the physical world. They spoke of something approaching, and an ending that is not the end. Nothing made sense, but the fear behind their words was unmistakable. As the world struggled to adapt to the coexistence with the dead, Leah began experiencing an unexpected side effect.
The more she communicated with the echoes, the more her consciousness seemed to drift, as if she lived between two realities. At times, she saw flashes of places that no longer existed. Other times, she heard voices of people she had never met. The border between life and death grew thinner. As she got closer to the echoes, she seemed to drift away from the world of the living. Elias tried to explain the origin of the echoes, but something always seemed to block him. He said they were fragments of what was and bridges of what will be, that they existed outside the linear time the living understood, that their return was not resurrection, but an emergency, a desperate attempt to warn the world about something approaching, something so immense that even the dead felt compelled to intervene. But what exactly was coming? The answer remained locked away, as if asking the right question was as important as hearing the answer. Leah began to understand that the arrival of the echoes was not the apocalypse. It was only the premonition. The true end, deeper, total, absolute, was coming. The echoes spoke of a final silence, of dissolution, of erasure. Not physical destruction, existence wiped away like a name written on glass during rain. Something approached with the inevitability of a cosmic force, and only the dead could see it, because they came from a place the living would never reach. As Leah tried to understand the nature of the apocalypse, the world began to shift in subtle ways. Animals grew restless. Dreams became more vivid. People reported seeing shadows where nothing should be. Temperatures changed without cause. It was as if the physical world had begun to feel the first ripples of something enormous, a bending of reality, a fracture in existence. The appearance of the echoes had already collapsed economies, governments, and social systems. But when reports of people like Leah began to spread, people who heard more than whispers, authorities panicked. They tried to isolate the echoes, confine them, study them. But as Elias warned, trying to imprison an echo is like trying to imprison a reflection. Interference from the living only accelerated instability around them, as if getting too close to the dead was tearing the fabric between worlds. Elias began to weaken. His voice flickered, his spectral body trembling as if being consumed by an invisible force. "We're being called back," he said. It wasn't a natural return. It was as if something was pulling the echoes, draining them, consuming their last chance to communicate. Leah realized time was running out. The last time she saw Elias, he tried to explain what was coming. His words broke apart in the air, as if the world itself refused to let them be spoken. He managed to say only, "It is not death, it is absence." And then he vanished. Now alone, Leah became the only bridge between the living and what remained of the echoes. There was no one else to interpret signs, fragments, or memories. The darkness the echoes feared was not a destructive force, but an erasing one, something that consumed body, meaning, memory, and echo. A second apocalypse that would leave no ghosts behind. With the echoes disappearing and the world on the brink of the unknown, Leah faces the silent truth. The dead warned us because the living would never perceive the threat until it was too late. Now she carries the burden of deciphering the unfinished message before everything, living, dead, memories, stories, is consumed by the final absence. What is coming? What erases even what once existed? And why were only the dead able to see it first? The answer remains in the shadow of the apocalypse, waiting to be heard.